This is Paul Turner, the immigration barrister at Imperium Chambers. I hope you had a good weekend. Today I'm talking about the latest statement, which is laughable in the extreme, from the Immigration Minister Kevin Foster, which indicates that those EU residents that are in the United Kingdom and don't have residence permits or haven't applied for them will be kicked out. Now, there are a number of things that come to mind when I hear this. Firstly, there are 1 million or so people that are in the United Kingdom without documentation whom the government have absolutely no chance of kicking out. Last year I think they removed about 10,000 people and it cost around 390 million people to do so. There are also the 3 chartered flights to Pakistan which never got off the ground at a cost of about £100,000 to the taxpayer. Perhaps that was due to the government putting Pakistan on the red list instead of putting India on the red list, and we all know what happened as a result of that, the Delta variant, and a great amount of deaths and sadness that have followed. But as to now the threat to kick out EU migrants, this is laughable. If the government can't even remove the 1 million or so people that are here undocumented and doesn't seem to show any real willingness to, the idea that talking tough about removing EU migrants who haven't applied for residence permits is no more than just hot air, the sort of hot air we're used to from Priti Patel. There is, of course, another big question, which is why do we want to be kicking people out of the United Kingdom when, if you turn on any news channel or read any newspaper, you can find that the UK is suffering from a chronic job shortage. Now, there are job shortages across the haulage sector. There are 140,000 jobs missing in the healthcare sector, which is particularly disturbing given the pandemic. And there are, I've seen myself, empty shelves in supermarkets. So clearly something's gone wrong with the labour market and the delivery chain, which used to be heavily dependent on people coming from Europe and delivering goods, but obviously they're not so welcome. Also, Brexit doesn't seem to have really played a great hand in this matter, as it means it's easier for people to import stuff into the United Kingdom than it is for us to import stuff out, due to Boris probably not reading the withdrawal agreement. So, what do we have instead? Instead of a complete revamp of the immigration system, given the fact that Priti Patel herself accepts that it's broken, and rather than having a proper revamp and think about what the UK actually needs, we end up with more right-wing rhetoric, this time from the Immigration Minister, probably acting as no more than a puppet for Priti Patel. In my view, and as I said all the way along, the only way that the UK is going to get on top of the immigration situation is by having some form of targeted amnesty. I know I keep returning to this and people think that I'm just saying it for the sake of saying it, but I've been doing immigration for some 22 years. And the last time the government actually got to grips with undocumented migrants, they processed some 500,000 claims, the vast majority of whom, due to their ties to the United Kingdom, were allowed to stay. So I don't see why we shouldn't do this now. I don't see why the government can't even introduce new, tougher or more fair immigration rules, other than the fact that if they are tougher or harder, it's going to make it harder for people to actually come here and fulfil the jobs that are shortly empty. As anyone knows who's trying to get their car filled up with petrol, it's very difficult. One of the reasons, a direct reason, is due to the government's incompetence in handling Brexit and the incompetence during the pandemic. So we're really living in the consequences of the government's incompetence both in immigration and in respect of health. So what does the government do? Well, rather than adopting a sensible policy, they make a token gesture of offering some 10,000 temporary migrants, which means you're okay to come here and work till Christmas, but afterwards you can just go home, which doesn't seem very Christmassy or Christian at all for a supposedly Christian country. This isn't really the right way to go about it, and 10,000 people is certainly not going to address the chronic labour shortages that the UK faces. Previously being part of the EU helped deal with that. What would also make things a lot easier would be if the government actually regularised the 1 million or so people whom they are never going to remove and who are subject to the hostile environment, not able to work legally thus forcing them into the hands of disreputable employers and other individuals that just simply are stuck here, not able to, as I say, rent, work, or even drive their car, not even take their kids to school. That kind of gives you an idea of what sort of government we have at the moment. One which, to use an expression, isn't so much as waiving the 10,000 temporary visas, but is actually drowning. And I hope at some point someone comes along with perhaps a UK border force boat and rescues the entire mess before it completely collapses. So there we have it. The immigration minister talks tough, but really it's just talk. The Home Office talks tough, but really it's just talk. Migrants still arrive. They will continue to arrive, especially given the consequences of Afghanistan. So really taking an overall approach of where this country is now post-Brexit, and remember we had an oven-baked deal, perhaps it wasn't left in the oven long enough, it is clear that we need to have a broad brush approach in order to rectify the problems that we have at the moment. As I say, I think the only clear way forward is to have some sort of amnesty, both for the undocumented migrants and for the EU nationals who tend to be the less well qualified. Get them all sorted, get them assimilated into the country, get them working, get petrol back into the forecourts, get food back into the supermarkets, and then look at the immigration system and pass new rules. Those are just my views. I'd be interested to hear yours. If you have any particular topics you wish me to discuss, please get in touch with me. Thank you very much for watching. This is Paul Turner, obviously the immigration barrister at Imperium Chambers. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the notification button if you want any up-to-date immigration news. Remember to stay safe in these dangerous times. The pandemic is not yet over, and I hope you watch my videos and enjoy them. Thank you again. This is Paul Turner, the immigration barrister at Imperium Chambers.